Hi, and welcome to Chain Reactions, a weekly live stream from Myosin XYZ, the leading global marketing network, and hosted by yours truly, Blake, and my co-host, Polina. Tune in each week as we jam on the latest happenings in the wild and wonderful world of Web3. We're live on Unlonely.app every Wednesday, 12 p.m. Eastern, and release the pod every following week on Tuesdays. Now, let's talk Chain Reactions.
I tweeted, shared on Discord also. All right.
I'm ready. Are you guys ready?
Yeah.
Let's go.
Let's fucking go. All right. So welcome everyone. Welcome to Chain Reactions. It's our one time a week at Myosin where we jam and just talk to some of the best and brightest in marketing within the world of crypto and blockchain. And really excited to have Charlie on today to talk about Nillion. So I don't know, how should we go about it? I guess, Charlie, you want to introduce yourself? Tell us a bit about yourself and your journey, and we can take it from there.
Yeah, sure. Okay. Yeah, so hello, I'm Charlie. I'm the founding team and head of marketing over here at Nillion. I've been in crypto since about 2017, always in a marketing or community role. Was previously very hidden behind the scenes, never really super interested in getting super forward facing. But now with Nillion kind of growing, I've definitely been pushed more into a forward-facing role. So yeah, I've just been at Nillion building everything, and I'd say the last 6 months or so we've been coming much more out of stealth as a project, and we've been doing a lot of interesting marketing campaigns, I would say. And yeah, it's been a lot of fun. So I guess that's kind of like a short intro on me. I just got an update on my title. That's cool. Thank you.
Well, let's dive around like 60 seconds. What is Nillion? Starting with when did Nillion start? Because it started popping up on my timeline about 6 months ago, right? And you mentioned it was in stealth. I didn't know that. So I'm wondering how much baggage do you have in this space?
In Nillion, how much baggage do I have?
Just Nillion in general.
Actually, both, but we can do the second part later.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Nillion was started in 2021. I joined at the very end of 2021 in December. And yeah, we've been relatively in stealth, mainly previously just focused on like education around the core tech and these kind of things, but we've gone much more retail recently, and we could recently realigned our brand as well behind one kind of core message. So yeah, that's why we've been appearing a lot more. We've just been much more cohesive. But the reason we were in stealth is because it's not like we're just like a fork of an L1 or a fork of an L2. And we are very much a ground up build of a computation network. So there was a lot of years, like lots of years of just actually building the tech and getting the core infrastructure in place. And now we're in a position where we can start to integrate with L1s, and we are on testnet, and we are at these exciting points where marketing makes a lot more sense and community building makes a lot more sense. So not too much baggage, no more than anyone else that's kind of on the founding team of a project. Yeah, this is definitely the most exciting point in Nillion's history so far. For sure.
So it's 3 years in stealth, and like the last
I'd say like 2.5.
Okay, 2.5
years. And then
how did your marketing team scale from the stealth mode to now? Like what is different?
Really. So we're still very small, including myself. There's 3 people on our marketing team. So it's a lot of people doing a lot of different things. We definitely have plans to scale it now, which is great. Up until now, it has just been 3 people, including myself. It's been very small and very agile, but that's been purposeful so that we can actually execute quickly rather than getting bogged down in a lot of bureaucracy and slow decision making. It also allows us to take a lot more brand risks, which we have been doing. And you can't do that.
Yeah.
Sorry?
Excited to dive into that shortly. But I think what we should do real quick, though, before we get too deep into things, is I think we actually, just for listeners and anyone who's tuning in now, is very briefly, like in your own words, like what is Nillion? How do you describe it? What makes it unique? Because I do think it's kind of a unique beast. Like you said, it's not just another L2. It's a little similar but different to what people may or may not have seen in crypto world.
Yeah. So our Twitter bio is humanity's first blind computer, which is kind of the umbrella. But essentially what we are is a blind computation platform or network. And essentially what that means is that anybody using the network can store or compute on data without anyone being able to see what that data is. So it remains completely private end to end. And that's a completely new kind of paradigm shift to what has been inherent in crypto, which has been everything's extremely public. We're adding in a private storage and private computation side of that. Right now, we're primarily working with a privacy technology called MPC, or multi-party computation. But our bigger vision is to extend our network and include lots of different privacy enhancing technologies, such as TEs, FHE, or fully homomorphic encryption, and a lot more. And the whole point of us doing that is we want privacy to be a default option at the start of a build process for a developer, for privacy to be able to be as easy as part of everything else. Whereas right now it's kind of a secondary thought. But the way we're positioning it is that by having private compute and by having private storage and being able to do things with L1s and build on top of us and do all these different things, you open up an entirely new use case set for crypto, which in turn opens up a whole new set of revenue streams as well for crypto, which is obviously what people like. So that is kind of how we're different, is that we're actually just building this new kind of white space for crypto that I don't think we've seen in at least the last 1 to 2 cycles. And I'd say the last big kind of similar breakthrough was when Chainlink brought off-chain data feeds on-chain. We're doing something similar by bringing sensitive data sets into the Web3 world. So yeah, it's kind of a 10,000-foot view of everything.
And it's great. It's great. And I just want to dig a little bit deeper into this because I think some bigger implications here, right? Because I think you just were talking about L1's building on top of Nillion. So I think it's, when we think about where you guys sit in the tech stack, it's, I think when we talk about private compute, I'm sure a lot of people are familiar with like ZK proofs and their, MPC and all that. So do you guys and there are now kind of like privacy oriented chains as well, like, Aztec, Alio. So if I'm understanding correctly, is the best way to think of it as, as you guys build out this new type of kind of privacy enabled compute, you're not necessarily, well, I guess, you're not necessarily building an L1, but you're enabling technology that anyone can build on top of to launch new chains or L1s or L2s, or however you think about it. Is that a good way to describe it?
So a way to look at it is you have our network. So our network is a compute network. So it's kind of like this thing. And then you can build directly on top of Nillion and settle to one of our partners, like Near. So you could build and settle to Near, but then the other way around is that a dApp that's building on Near, say if they are already established and they're already in production, they could still use Nillion to store a private data set in our network and then run compute on that private data set. So it offers a two-way solution. You can build on us and settle to them, or you can build on their network and still access private storage and private compute from our side.
It's exciting. And it makes so much sense why you guys are working with Near. Obviously they're thinking about, DA and all this. And
yeah, they think a lot about AI and stuff like that, which is great. We're very aligned with their team on how decentralized private AI should be built in the future. So we're very close with their team. We do a lot with them. They're great.
I love it. Yeah, I'll throw it to Paulina. We should talk about marketing and stuff. Yeah.
Can you explain to me, like in plain sort of human language, why should anyone care about this new revenue streams that Nillion would bring?
Yeah, well, okay, so there's two ways to look at that. So it's like, why? First, there's the harder problem to solve it. Getting people interested in money is not really difficult in crypto. It's probably the easiest problem to solve. But the hard thing to get people interested in that we've been tackling from a marketing and brand positioning perspective is how do you get people to care about privacy? Because right now people either A, don't care, or B, are scared of it. And you see this with a lot of the projects of the past that are focused on private transactions. And that is very terrifying to a lot of people because they saw what happened with Tornado Cash and they saw those issues. So that is why we are purely positioned around computation and data and private secure data, because we're no longer part of that guard of projects. They are what I consider, from a brand positioning perspective, old guard privacy, and we are what I'm determining as new guard privacy. We're the new evolution of that space, and that's why we are creating a category around that and inviting people to be part of that category with us. So that is probably the harder problem to solve. As for the new revenue streams areas, is that the adoption of crypto is very at a glass ceiling because there's only so much you can do with fully transparent data. There's only so much there's only so much a user wants their data to be stored in a transparent way. People are already struggling with a lot of their financial information that they do on chain being public.
I have so many thoughts about on-chain payments.
Exactly.
I think ZKs and privacy and what you guys can do is so important, because sorry to interrupt, but I just I feel very strongly about this. It is crazy that today, if I pay someone with my ENS, they can just look at my ENS and see everything I've ever done. It makes no sense. I'm never going to replace Venmo or Zelle or the existing Web2 applications if you can just see my entire bank account. It makes no sense.
100%.
So very much in line with what you're talking about there. Yeah.
Exactly. And then if you extrapolate that out to your personal identifiable information, where you live, your genealogy data, all these different areas that kind of make you a person, the data points that make you, that maybe are stored centrally right now, by bringing that into crypto, into our industry itself, and providing a way for people in a decentralized sense to be able to actually use private or sensitive data sets. That means instantly you get all these new business models that can come into our space. And that means that people that are building in a decentralized industry, such as crypto, then get access to those revenue streams, because it allows them to actually use those data sets. It allows them to effectively do that, bringing in new customers, bringing in new adopters, bringing in new people that want to build businesses in these areas, which does bring more revenue and money and investment opportunities into our industry. You kind of saw this with the explosion of DeFi in the past. We think it's going to be even bigger than that again, because again, there's just so much more data that you can use when you can unlock the silos of data. There's kind of these, sleeping giant industries right now that can be brought into the light by being decentralized and by being able to use that data.
Okay. Awesome. So there's a lot of technical and exciting things. And you mentioned that a lot of the marketing, like before, when you were in stuff, they were focused around education and bringing in, I guess, more developer focused. What I'm seeing right now is way more like consumer friendly, whereas you do all the fun bits. Like DevCon was a great example for me, because you guys did a full blown Bangkok takeover. You painted the town blue with your tuk network. You held a hackathon. You did a Dapper Dance series. You posted daily vlogs, 5 vlogs in 6 days.
Back. I just realized I forgot something. 2 seconds, but keep going. I'll be right back.
Anything I'm missing for the Bangkok activation? I mean, you gave away merch.
Yeah, we did. What did we do? We did obviously the 100 cars every day. We built a web application as well, so that people could track where events were. That was tuk.nillion.com, where you could see where all the events were in distance to where you were at the time. We did the daily vlogs, which was a lot of work. We did the Dapper Dance stuff. We hosted an exclusive dinner. We did over 20 talks on panels and speaking stuff. We co-hosted and co-sponsored between 5 and 10 events. I can't remember the exact number. Yeah, we did, and we did the Proof of Tuk social campaign as well. So we did quite a lot. It was a big campaign for
Team
us.
of 3. How?
Well, to be fair, for that, I did have a contractor team with me called Banana Season, who's run by a friend of mine called Rue. So they are the best events team that I know, and they're massively creative. Oh, that's great. That's so good.
I saw at DevCon and I forgot to wear it.
That's so good. That's so good.
Go. Always be marketing,
I did have help for DevCon. I had a lot of help for DevCon from their team. It wouldn't have been possible without them. So, because we did have a lot of staff while we were there.
So the special activations thing, like mostly crypto brands are limiting themselves to maybe a photo from a panel, maybe a video from a panel, which will be edited in a nice way. And thank God already. A tweet, touchdown in Bangkok. That's pretty much it. You guys went full blast, like special campaign. You built an app and everything. Tell me, how much time in advance did you need to plan something like this? And what was how much time did it take to plan something like this? And how hard was the execution of it in terms of budgets?
Yes, they're a great question. So it went from idea, so me on the phone with our contractor team, our agency, idea to execution of being in Thailand in about 8 weeks. So it was relatively short run up of, hey, here's a cool idea, to us actually being in Thailand. So it was very tight timelines. So that's why you need the best team working on it. And I am going to gatekeep my agencies fully because I plan on using them. But we do have the best agency to work with us on that. But we did have a lot of other moving parts. Like I had an editor that was in California, and that was purposely done because it meant at the end of our day in Thailand was the start of her day in California. So she could do a turnaround on the edits. We had 8 Nillion team members there. We had everything. The whole point of it is that you said, like most people are just like super boring in how they actually approach conferences. They'll go, okay, what's the playbook? I'm going to set up a side event. I'm going to call it X Things Summit, and I'm going to invite speakers. Most of the time, 30 people show up to a side event because there's 500 side events a week. So the reason we did what we did is was like, okay, we want to be the actual infrastructure that moves people around from side event to side event so that we have to be used. We're an integral part of what actually happens in the city. And, you know, I've been to side events for years and years and years and years, and I normally have to spend hundreds of dollars in Ubers just to travel from place to place to watch a 10-minute talk on something like it could have been a tweet. So we wanted to have a gamify the actual experience of moving around the city and have it be for free. So the for free part is obviously the difficult aspect because it requires budget and spend on our side. And I think I addressed this in one of the earlier videos, is that people just think marketers throw money at something and don't really think about like the ROI or what the business case of it is. But what people don't know is that we set up the network and then offered the network to a lot of side events. And then we swapped, you will get access to X amount of cars if you give us co-sponsorship and a speaking opportunity. And a speaking opportunity at a large side event can cost you between, you know, 5 to 7K. And if it's at like a tier 1 project, like, you know, one of the big L1s, it can be anywhere of 10 to 15K to even be on a panel. So we went into the week of, you know, into planning this with 0 speaking opportunities because we hadn't begun to do that yet. And we went out with a deck. We put together a deck and was like, hey, you can either pay us to be a banner advertisement on our network, or you can give us a speaking opportunity and we will guarantee that you have attendees at your event. So we did about over 60K's worth of swaps on this. So we got 60K's worth of speaking opportunities completely for free because we just offered them access to our network, our tuk network. But then we also had the application, the web application, and we realized, hey, this looks like the Uber map, which is great. What we're going to do is we're going to block out city blocks with a company's logo that has a specific speaking event or whatever. And it essentially works as a banner advertisement inside of an application. And we partner with a bunch of different projects, which is great. And then we ended up actually bringing in over 20K in revenue just by offering banner advertisements. So we did about 80K in cash generated for Nillion by just offering them the network, which covered the cost of doing a full week's worth of cars. So that is a lot of the kind of business acumen side of it people don't actually see. But that is how, if you're going to run a large marketing campaign like this, you need to think about, how can I do deals with other events people? How can I do deals with other projects? So that we're actually maximizing the ROI on this for our brand. Because, yeah, like I said, there's the money aspect of it, but if we're also partnering with an Aptos or we're doing something with Nia, we're then getting them to publish our brand, which means we're getting more brand awareness through their channels. And that just contributes to the overall goal of painting that city blue that week. So, yeah, that's kind of some of the thinking behind the network that we do.
That's awesome. It's very smart. Talk to me about numbers. Did you measure at all how many rides were taken, how many users engaged with the app?
So we can track journeys. We can't track number of users because a car could have 1 person in or 5 people in. But we can track number of rides, and we did over 1,500 rides in the week. So we were doing a lot, and that's just, again, we don't know how many people that is, but that's more than what we wanted. So we did over 1,500 rides. We gave out about 5,000 pieces of merch. Example 1 being in the call with us right now. But that was probably one of the biggest successes, is the merch side of things. Obviously, we did the thing with Dapper Dan and Ansem and Vance and stuff like that, which was great. But we had it so that we had merch stalls in multiple locations every day, so that people could just grab them and do stuff like that. But it ended up being that we'd set up a merch stall in a hotel or something like that, and we'd have like the cleaning staff and the cook staff come from the hotel to collect pieces of merch because they'd seen other people collect them. So they thought, this must be something that I need. So they went and grabbed it. So we had a lot of like cook staff taking crop tops and taking all these things. We were just giving it away constantly. Yeah. So there was a lot, and we did like over the week, like K impressions just around the Bangkok campaign. There was obviously an online element to the campaign as well as the offline element. So there was a handful of metrics we were tracking for sure.
You mentioned word gamified when referring to the tuk network and users taking rides. Was there any sort of like element to it where they would earn points by requesting a ride in the app or doing something in the app? Like you're, questing things.
So in the app, we partnered with PoApp. And in every car, there was a QR code that you would scan, and you'd get a unique POAP to say, I was in car 74. And it was 100 community designed POAPs. And those POAPs contributed to what we were calling miles, kind of like air miles. And air miles would contribute to like pieces of merch you can collect, or, prizes, or all these different things. So you could just get in and not interact with that element at all. It was not a necessary part. But it was a fun gamification side of it that people did interact with, and it's just another metric for us to be able to collect as well. And then obviously the main gamified aspect of it was the Proof of Tuk Tuk social campaign, and actually just having people post photos with the cars. Like, it's so simple. Just take a photo and you might win $200. Like, it's very easy. So yeah, there was definitely a lot of gamification thought through, as well as the Dapper Dan stuff, which was inside of the cars. So, yeah.
It's also, I feel like on CT, people really like when crypto is in the wild and seeing ads IRL in the wild, and they always just kind of do it, being like, oh, we're going mainstream. So when there's a big blue tuk-tuk, it only, like, you want to take a photo of it.
Exactly.
It's not just a sticker slapped on the tuk-tuk. The whole thing is painted blue. That makes it more desirable to take a photo of. So
for sure.
So,
go for it.
I just want to so I love this, number one. I mean, this is really insightful, and it's really impressive to, I think, hear about all the different elements, I think, that you mapped together here, whether it was the tuk-tuks, the app, the collaborations, the events, the thinking on the business case. I would love to better understand how that ties into where Nillion is today. Right? So what are you guys up to? What are the goals, I guess? Obviously drumming impressions, getting people aware, but to what end, I guess, right now with Nillion? So where are you guys in your journey, right? Are you trying to drum up more devs to build on Nillion? Is it you're trying to promote the apps that are, because I was actually going through the site, it looks like the ecosystem is pretty robust, right? And there's a lot of interesting people already building on it. So what are you guys focused on right now when it comes to this campaign and getting people excited about it?
Yeah, that's a great question. So over the past, I'd say month, 2 months, it's just been pure brand awareness. It's been the whole play. We released a video that was something like, what is Nillion? Check here or something. It was a video that was completely realigning our brand story, because over the past year, I think we've done a relatively fractured job of actually telling the brand story. So I wanted to just completely align everything behind one mission. And then we released that. That did really, really well, which is great. And then we went into our fundraising announcements, which was great as well. We were trending on Twitter for about 22 hours, which is great. That did 1 million impressions in the first day, which is really great as well. And then we went into our meta collaboration paper, which was around a research piece. And then we went to DevCon. So all of that was pre-planned out to be just big brand awareness, just really big. And now, as we've come out of that, I always think the first week after a conference, people are just trying to fight jet lag. So there's no whole point actually doing a whole lot. But now,
this whole week,
people are just brain dead. It's crazy. I'm the exact same. So now the focus is going to be, okay, you know the brand, you've seen us. When you see royal blue on the timeline. You'll think of us. If you see it pop up, you'll think, oh, that might be interesting to check. It's just essentially building that kind of interest when they see the brand, and also humanizing the brand. It's incredibly complex technology. So having myself and Alex, our CEO, and Miguel, our chief scientist, be out there and doing things, if you realize, I'm not the smartest person in the room. So if I can understand it, then everyone can understand it. And it's about humanizing a brand and not just having this be like monolithic brand presence. But now, as we go ahead, it's going to be around education. So why is it important? What does this affect? How will this change the crypto space? All these kind of big questions, and they're all going to be aligned behind a very clear product and tech vision that people can go, okay, here's where they are now. Here's what they're exploring in R&D. Here's how I'm at this part of the journey with them, and this is how much further they want to go, and this is their goals, and all these different things. And whilst, yes, that's important for the commercial side of the business as well, it's also incredibly important at the community level, because they'll go, okay, I'm part of the journey now, and I can very clearly see where we need to go in order to get this new technology into a position where it can actually change the space, and how can I help, and how can I do these different things? So aligning under education, under the product and tech vision is going to be the main focus. But then built on top of that, it is going to be launching our ecosystem partners. We have this program called Nucleus, in which we really stand with each partner and build with them and help them with their go-to-market and help them with all these areas. And we've got 2 of them launching in December, and that's going to be a big campaign. There's going to be a lot to do. So all of that aligns. Now that we have brand awareness, it's about how do we make that brand awareness tangible by humanizing the brand, by attaching our community to the product and tech vision, and by showing here are the tangibles that are happening in our ecosystem right now. So that's going to be the next set.
You got a lot of attention after the fundraising announcement, the DevCon and everything, but we all know attention in crypto is very fractionalized and you lose it very quickly. And going into sort of deeper, more meaningful conversations about, the tech and generally educating the people about the ecosystem, it's challenging if you want to keep it interesting, if you want to keep that attention. So it's exciting with the 2 launches coming in December, and I'm sure that's going to be helpful with retaining that attention. But is there something else that you plan to make sure that you keep them stuck to Nillion, keep that attention going, keep that flywheel turning?
Yeah, for sure. There's going to be a lot more on the video content side. I think that's where we've really found a unique, a UVP in terms of marketing. There's now a lot of projects that are now copying what I would call our documentary style editing and, voiceovers. So we're going to be releasing more of them around the product and tech vision as well. But in terms of attention, you're absolutely correct that attention is it goes up and it goes down. I'm a big believer that if once you're at the high, what I'd say Nillion is right now, Nillion's at a high of attention. I don't treat that like we're the best in the world or anything, because then if we in a dip, I don't want us to feel like we're the worst. So I just try and have it be here's a consistent story, and things will pick up and go as they go. But as long as we're being authentic and we're trying to do new creative things and we're trying to take these kind of brand risks, that will always kind of succeed and push through. Just because I know a lot of projects are terrified of attention and they're terrified of attention statistics. And I try and not have us focus on that too much, because I never want that to guide the decisions we make. Because ultimately, for example, the vlogs, for example, they weren't scalable marketing campaigns, but they were extremely effective. And if I was a person that just lived purely in the spreadsheets, which I know a lot of people do, that wouldn't have been a good strategic move from a marketing standpoint. But we've got to remember that crypto is a very small industry and it's a fringe industry. So by taking non-scalable risks, you're going to garner more attention. So we're going to be doing a lot more creative campaigns, but I've never been a huge person that focuses on what is our attention points, what are these different areas. It's all about how do we communicate what we're doing effectively and try and humanize the team. Yeah.
I think you also mentioned briefly that the Dapper Dan series was on a very tight timeline when you came up with the idea, from the idea to sort of the release. And I think that you know, what you're saying now and your approach to things is less about planning things on paper and more about thinking of ideas and trying to implement them right away, which is great. But at the same time, as the ecosystem grows bigger and you have a lot more moving pieces, I feel like there's got to be a lot of more planning done in advance.
Yeah. So we're not day to day planning. We do have like the next quarter, 6 months is planned out for what we're going to do. So that's fine. We know what we're going to be doing. We know where we're going to be, but that we do leave room for ad hoc issues as well. Like the Dapper Dan, like we didn't have that planned. He replied to our announcements of DevCon with, we should make a game shot of this. And I was like, okay, just let me know what we need to do. And then we met him for 30 minutes to shoot the promo on one day, which I was in, which was a horrific piece of acting, but I was in it. And then we met him the next day and we essentially said, here you go. Here's a car, set your GoPro up. And then he went round for about an hour and then that was it. And then I sent the footage over to my editor and that'll be going out on Monday. So in all, it was about an hour's worth of work. And it was just, it's a very creative piece. But if we're too rigidly planned, it might be something you can't do. But as part of like the overarching story and brand building for Nillion, that is very planned out for like the next 3 to 6 months. Like I know where we're going and I know what it's going to look like. I'm not just waking up every day being like, so what's brand today? Like we know what it's going to be.
No, for sure. I'm curious, like after DevCon, is there something that you wish you did differently or you wouldn't change anything?
Wish we could do differently. One, I would maybe have done one big vlog at the end of the week rather than daily, just because the editing turnaround was so short. Like it would be 10 p.m. Bangkok time and I would be going through 3 hours of footage with our editor to figure out the story for that day. And then she'd turn it around and it would never go out and it would go out. Whereas I think if we had a 1 week long 15-minute piece, we could have really tightened up the editing, really tightened up those things. But I almost don't know if that would have performed better or worse. That's just more the perfectionist in me. The next thing I would have probably done is I would have probably brought or hired 2 additional members of staff just to go to side events to capture content there. We're very much reliant on the side events themselves capturing content. 90% of people are bad at that. So I wouldn't do that next time. I'd make sure we have staff following around our key speakers to do things. But that's something I'll definitely implement at ETH Denver, where we'll be next. But they're the 2 main things.
Was there any super stressful moment except for daily editing of vlogs, I guess?
Super stress. So most people there, what were the stressful moments? The stressful moments was just making sure the cars went okay. You know, we had 100 cars and I had about 150 staff that week because we have all the car staff. We have 20 ground staff that are, you know, setting up locations. We had 10 different staff for merch and like, so that just running the actual infrastructure itself, like it looks very fun on the vlogs and it was a very fun experience, but there is a lot that me and the head of our agency, a guy called Rue, who's a good friend of mine, like there's a lot of very small things going wrong all the time that you have to deal with. So that's probably the most stressful thing is that, the cars and everything that went into them and just hoping nobody crashed, hoping nobody got hurt, being planned if something does happen. Are the drivers happy? Are people able to get from location A to B? What is the drive time? What's that user journey like? Like there's all those kind of small details that you have to think about.
Yeah, logistically, there's a lot there, right? Because I think like I think I told you, Charlie, like I in the first tuk-tuk I took, I met Depadan and he was telling me about this like game show thing. And I think we got stuck in traffic going to like another one, right? And so then there's like, you're talking about it's everything, just like getting around. And actually on that, what were the biggest, well, I don't know if you feel comfortable sharing, like what were the biggest issues that came up during that whole, because it is a logistical.
It's a legitimate transport infrastructure in a city. Like it's like, the biggest thing was traffic and getting people from A to B. Because as you know, like by the end of the week, we knew, okay, 10 a.m. to 12 are great times to travel. 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. are the worst times to travel. This is the time that we need to deploy more cars to this location or to that location, or this is where we need more people at the Shifi stop than we do at another stop, and it's moving. So none of it went wrong. We were very, very lucky. Nothing went wrong at all. It was more planning, essentially like on Uber where you have surge. It's like planning where the surge is going to be.
You basically became a taxi company for a week.
We legitimately became a taxi company for a week. It's like, okay, Shifi's at 9 a.m. That's great. We know to have 10 cars there. And we know that another event starts an hour later, and that's 5 kilometers away. So we need to allocate 40 minutes of time for them to travel there. And we need to make sure that the cars move. And then the other 80 cars are in circulation, and all these things are happening at the same time. But when it all comes together, it's very, very good. But we did have a lot of help with that as well.
So I'm curious, in general, we in marketing Web3 complain a lot that we don't have a lot of budget to work with compared to like Web2 marketers, where there's a full-blown like marketing department. And I know you had sort of a deck you had planned for ROI, for speaking events and things like that. Was there any sort of pushback from, the team for allocate, like it's a big bet to pull this off? Was there any sort of pushback, or was the team super supportive from the get-go to arrange this activation?
Yeah, it was a hard sell to begin with, if I'm honest. It's not an easy sell to be like, I want to get 100 cars. Because one, most people don't know, you have to tackle Thai law for about 3 weeks to figure out all the liabilities and get the contracts. And those contracts don't come in English. So there's a lot that needs to be dealt with there. So that was fine. We have a very good system at Nillion in which I create like strategy documents that outlines budget, outlines team, outlines the opportunity cost, outlines here are the big OKRs, here are the big KPIs, here's how we're going to hit them. If we don't hit them, here's the contingencies in place. So as long as we follow the correct process, there's not a lot we can't do. We have great freedom. The founders are really good at understanding the commercial importance of crypto. A lot of projects just focus, especially in privacy in infrastructure side, they mainly just focus on the dev side, which is very important. But as we know, narrative market fit is just as important in our industry, and our founders deeply understand that, which is great. So there is a lot we can do if it's clearly mapped out. But initially it was a relatively hard sell. But we got it over the line, so it's fine.
To hear a little bit more about the community, right? Because I think right now we're talking about events, we're talking about community strategy. Like, who is the Nillion community? What are, how do they factor into all this? Just kind of like taking a little bit of a right turn here, right? Like, how do they factor in? What have you guys been doing, and what's coming up? We'd just love to like learn more about that as well. Yeah,
it's a great question. So when I actually started at Nillion, I was on the founding team, but my first position was community manager. So I started
nice
at the bottom of the marketing rungs and had always kind of been there. And then I was the head of community for Nillion, and now I'm the head of marketing for Nillion. But so I was the first community member at Nillion, like number one.
Charlie is
and sorry?
No, I was just saying Charlie is the community member number one.
I am community member number one. There's no denying it. But it's always been at the core of the focus for us, and it's always been where we've been. We were in stealth for a long time, but the community wasn't, and we've been building them, and we've been engaging with them and trying to do as much as we can with them always. And I'm actually in the process of actually hiring someone to take over the reins of that from me, which is going to be a very hard thing for me to do, but it is going to have to be necessary. But some of the most interesting campaigns that we've done with the community is that once we introduced blind computation, the community kind of took to the narrative of blind warriors. And that's kind of the community motif that has happened. And I don't know if you saw, I know you do a lot of research, so you might have. I did like an 8-week live stream campaign with everything. I don't know if you saw it. If you didn't, I can go into it. But we did.
I didn't see that one. Did you see it?
I saw the PFPs with the blind and the Nil Army community.
Yes. So that's it. So essentially, the campaign was on a random, I can't remember, it was a Saturday in like June or something. I put out a tweet on the Nillion Corp account, which was like, comment with your profile picture and I will attach a blue blindfold to it to represent the blind warriors. And it got like 2,000 comments and like 250k impressions. And I was like, guys, I can't do this many. Like, this is insane.
Just for comparison, like a normal tweet during that time frame, how much reach would it get?
Well, we were deep in the fucking bear market. So the market had just had like 100 billion wiped off it. People were sad and logging off. So we weren't getting a lot of engagements at that time. And then it happened that like a lot of founders of large L1s were doing it. And it just became like, markets, crypto's a bit sad right now. Here's like a fun thing to do on the weekend. So I didn't sleep for 24 hours and I edited like 600 of these things in an evening over 24 hours. And it became this like fun thing. But I still had like, 1,400 comments that I didn't get to. So we did it. It started this like 8-week campaign called the Blind Warrior Ceremonies, in which I would live stream on Twitter every Friday for 6 hours. 6 hours I would live stream and edit 200 profile pictures live on stream using Photoshop. And we did that for 8 weeks. And the last one was 12 hours nonstop of like live stream and editing and stuff like that. And it became like this like big cultural thing in the community. People really rallied behind it and it was really great. And we, in total, I've done like over 3,000 of these things now. And they're all hand edited by me in Photoshop. So it's very...
But that's so smart. It's this psychological effect where when they see that you've put in the work, it's like these threads, I analyzed 1,000 threads on blah, blah, blah. And here are my 15 takeaways. When people see that you put in a lot of work yourself, like during the live stream, they want to be part of it as well. And they feel like associate, like they feel more as part of the community. And that's...
For sure. And it's also like, it's a one-of-one because only I've edited it. So no one else is going to have that PFP again. So, and it was also became like a gate. So if you wanted to join like specific channels, you had to send the link where I've given you your PFP on Twitter. So it like grew and it became this like cultural thing to where I'll now be in a random, degen thread, or I'll be in like a random Trenches Telegram and someone will have a blindfolded PFP and I've never met them before, but I've obviously edited their profile picture at some point. And it's like a very just instantly connecting. Yeah, it's a network effect. It's just, and it's also like if someone joins, if I join something and there's someone there, it's instantly a talking point and it's instantly something I could connect with someone on. And you don't get that, if you have a doodles or a different kind of profile picture, it's like, yeah, I'm part of this community, but you don't inherently know everyone in there, or you don't feel like you have a personal connection with everyone that has it. But with ours, it's kind of like, I'm not doing them anymore. So there's a finite amount of these things and they're not like NFTs. So you're not going to trade them. It's just a cool thing to have. And was like a very interesting kind of like moment in time for us. And it's a deeply non-scalable thing because it is a poor use of my time, actually, in fact, to spend 75 hours over X amount of weeks editing profile pictures. But it was a lot of fun. And we, it's one of the big things that we've really built our community around.
And I think it's brilliant, right? Because I think it's the quote, right, that goes around all the time in entrepreneurship is, do the things that don't scale, right, until they scale. Or I forget exactly what it is, right? But like, especially, and I think that's the thing that people take for granted, especially with community. Like, I mean, and I'm sure you've dealt with this, and we deal with it all the time when we work with clients, especially ones who want like help building community. Is they're just like, they come in and they're like, help make us turn our community just like, like what Bearchain's doing. It's like, guys, like they've been doing this for years. Like, it's not going to happen overnight.
We want to be Monad.
Yeah. And it's like, these things are deeply like, it takes a lot of things that don't scale and a lot of time and a lot of effort and a lot of like grinding by hand, right? And
it's a lot of grinding by hand. The Monad example gets thrown out a lot because they have such a great community. But I don't know if you've ever met Bill or Kev on their team, but I don't think there's any two people that think more about community dynamics than the two of them. And there's a reason why they're in the position they're in is because they've always put that first and they've always done very well. So if someone's just like, hey, give me this result, it's just like, you clearly are not thinking about this in detail enough.
Get it. Yeah.
You got to think about this on like multiple years kind of time frame rather than like, hey, I want to be Monad in 3 months. It's just like, oh, all right, well, you're going to fucking lose. If that's your mentality in this space, you got to really think long term about it.
Yeah.
It's hard to be a marketer in crypto, but you're doing God's work here.
It's the most fun.
Good. Yeah,
It's the most fun.
So we'll have a quick fire round because we have like about 4 minutes left. So just short question. Okay, first one. Most underrated marketing tactic in Web3.
Twitter communities, because you can, if you have someone in your Twitter communities, every time you pin a message to the top of that community, it sends a push notification to everyone in that community. So you instantly, you up your engagement by about 40% every time.
There you go. Data-driven marketing for you. What about most overrated one?
Most overrated marketing. Everybody has a mascot. I hate it. And everybody has to be a main character. I hate that as well.
Yeah.
But I think the reason for people putting mascot is humanizing the brand, whereas you humanizing through the
People?
team. Yeah. But no, not everyone wants to be on camera. I think that's the problem.
That's true. I understand the mascot thing. Trader Joe does it really well. Monad does Mon Animals. They do it really well. But now someone will just create like a robot or like a dog, and they'll be like, "This is my mascot," and you're like, "I don't know who this is." Like, it's just a person on the screen.
And I think there's a balance, right? Because it's like kind of like what Charlie's talking about with like Blind Warriors. It's like when we think about brand recognition, it doesn't have to be like a single monolithic main character in a sense, right? It can be like when we talk about community, it can be whether it's a color, whether it's a blindfold, whether it's there are many ways of kind of like signaling, right? Because that's all this really is. It's like, how do you tie people together? It's through colors, it's through mascots, but it's a very like, it's the most obvious thing I think for most people. So yeah, again,
For sure.
Okay, which brands except Nillion are crushing it on the marketing side or social specific?
Movement Labs. My boy Will is crushing it hard over at Movement Labs. I love what they're doing. It feels a cop-out to say Monad, so I'm not going to say them. Eclipse is doing a great job right now. I know they've just completely, I don't know who bullied their team to start tweeting more, but I thank them for it. That's great. There needs a lot of internal pressure to get people to tweet, and whoever did that for them has done a fantastic job. And then I will call out individuals. I think Emily from Hype has been doing a very good job on actually just building momentum behind crypto marketers right now.
Yeah,
I think Reka from
GTM was great.
I went to one of the talks. That was really good. And then Reka as well, who was the previous CMO of Guild, who is now, I don't know where she works, but she's doing a lot on the timeline as well. And I think they're just doing a lot of good for the marketing space. So I'm going to say Movement, Eclipse, and then them two. That was like the best one.
Awesome. What keeps you up at night running marketing at Nillion?
Well, everything. I don't know. I never sleep.
What is sleep?
What keeps me up at night?
After DevCon, especially.
After DevCon?
I mean, generally right now, like what is your like number one priority? I mean, I know you mentioned there are 2 big launches coming up. Like I'm sure before it was, DevCon, the Tuk network, the Thai bureaucracy that was keeping you up at night quite a bit. What is it now?
Right now, it is going to be everything we're about to launch around product and tech and ensuring that we effectively communicate to a wide range of audiences. So we need to communicate to a developer audience, but we also need to communicate to a left curve audience and a more retail audience. It's what I currently planned going to be able to effectively communicate to both of those audiences. That keeps me up the most.
Awesome. And the last one is the worst marketing advice that you've heard recently or maybe overheard on DevCon?
Worst marketing advice? The CMO should be the main character. I don't like that advice.
Yeah.
That's the worst advice.
What do you think about founder-led marketing as a concept?
I like founder-led marketing if it makes sense for the project. Yeah. There's a lot of founders that just aren't cut out to be massively forward-facing, or it's incredibly uncomfortable for them. And if something's incredibly uncomfortable, the normal default response is just have a marketer run their account. Yeah. That's fine. That could work. But then you'll see someone will be like shit posting on Twitter, and then they'll get put on a panel and they'll be incredibly formal. And you just can see how it's inorganic and incorrect. But then there are people like Rushi and Keone and Claire from Aztec, where it's just very clear they're very comfortable in that position. And I think that is very organic and well-executed founder-led marketing or executive marketing in terms of Claire. So I think it's good if it fits, but I don't think it's necessary.
That's really what it comes down to, right? Like people smell it from a mile away. And then as you said, it's a very small industry. So
it's a small industry.
You're gonna Yeah.
You know, if you look at Berachain, Smokey's great, but
Yeah.
they have Cami on the DevRel side, and she
Yeah.
is an incredible brand ambassador for them. You know, you have Abstract with Luca, but you also have Abril on their team,
Yeah.
who is incredible brand ambassador. They're not founders, but it's authentic team marketing that I think you don't need to be founder led. You just need to empower the people that want to be in those positions.
And how to empower them is a whole different conversation,
Yeah,
because
pay
that's a
them well.
challenge on its own.
Pay them well. You'll do all right.
Step
That's
one.
how Nillion does it. There you go. Okay, I think that's a wrap then.
Yeah.
Thanks, Charlie, so much for
Hey,
sharing
last
the
thing.
behind the
Well,
scenes.
we need to give Charlie a space real quick. Charlie, if anyone needs to find you or they want to, like, what's the call to action, I guess, for, you know, anyone listening on
Quick
whether it's
shell.
pod or later on? Yeah.
Just check out our Twitter, Nillion Network. You don't really have to check me out. There's not a whole lot of value coming from my personal account. I just know, you know, just Nillion Network is the best place to find us. It's where all the big updates are. Or Discord, discord.gg/Nillion Network. We're the same everywhere, so you can find us.
Consistency. It's important. I love it.
Awesome.
Cool. Well, thank you so much, Charlie. This was really fun, really insightful. Honestly, this was one of my favorite combos this season, I think. So really excited to get this out into the world. And yeah, thanks for coming on.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Thank you for having me. Thank you very much.
Likewise.
Okay.
Ciao, ciao.
All right.
Bye.
Ciao, ciao. Have a good one.